start. So thank you everybody for joining this training session on office management key skills. I've done a lot about specific things in roles like dealing with office moves, health and safety and so on, but I started to think about how I can try and share some of my knowledge and my experience in terms of key skills and tools that might be useful for us to use in our everyday roles. So this session is being recorded, so if anybody does ask any questions on chat, I will read them out. I don't have to read out your name if you're not comfortable for me to, just let me know. And obviously if you do put yourself on camera or unmute, it will be shown and we'll upload it to our YouTube channel just to make you aware there. So hopefully everyone can see my screen and it changing over now. So there we go. It's a lovely picture of me from many moons ago before I had a baby, looking nice and fresh. So basically, I just wanted to give a little bit of background really about me and my time in office management and my experience in the position to give some context. So I've always worked in office and facilities management roles, and I've been a PA and EA as well, in corporate firms like JP Morgan and RBS, but also in smaller firms where I've had a much bigger remit, so investment banks and financial houses like Berenberg and City Index, which is a spread trading firm. So mainly in finance, the background. I've hired and managed multiple office support staff over my career. And one of the things I often look for is what they say are their key skills in an interview situation, and then try and obviously enhance and develop those as their career with me progresses, and to act like a mentor to them. Now, as part of my office management consultancy, which is called Black and White, and I'm being very apt today wearing my black and white top, we train office managers, and we're launching soon a specific training course which actually talks about how to do your job, as well as some of these key skills that you can grow to enable you to do it better and more effectively. And then the office management group, as you know, we have the office management portal offering, but also we'll be doing more things like exhibitions and the awards, which I'll be launching very soon, so look out for that. But yeah, lots and lots of things and lots of training and coaching as part of that. So what skills does an office manager need to carry out their job effectively? And it'd be great if anyone wants to add any as we go through this. Please do feel free to pop in the chat what you think are the key skills that are needed. So for me, these are the top 4, and I've narrowed it down to 4, and then I talk about a few others later in the slides, but these for me are the top 4. Organisation, so multitasking, prioritising and timing. So there's quite a few in there, but I think organisation is the way to sum all of those up quite nicely. Proactiveness, so staying ahead of the game, always staying one step ahead. I think that's a really key one in our roles. Self-motivated, this can be a tricky one, and we'll talk about it a little more in a bit, but being an actual doer as well, doing the job yourself, being hands-on, I think that's a really key skill to have in these roles. And communication, it really, really, really is key. And people say it a lot, but it is so key. And again, we'll talk about that a little more. I think my partner's just got home with the baby and he's obviously woken up because he's crying. So apologies if you can hear that in the background. So looking at organisation first, what is it? I mean, it goes without saying that this is a top skill, and there might be people that disagree there, and I'd love to hear from you if so, and you know, what you think is perhaps the top skill, and it might not be any of those 4, but for me it's always the top skill. It's something that I've always prided myself on, and I think whenever you're going for these kind of roles, it's really important to be able to demonstrate that somehow within your interview to show that you're organised and not just say it. So why is it so key? We wear so many hats in these roles. I talk about it all the time. We're jack of all, master of some. We wear multiple hats, and you're quite literally going from an email thread one minute about an office move budget to leaky toilets next in the same breath, you know, sometimes. And I think because of that, your distractions are high. So being able to say, oh, sorry.
Because after speaking to you yesterday and trying to organise.
Megan? Oh, okay. Yeah, so distractions are high, and I think, yeah, given the nature of the role, you're going from one task to the other, and they'll be completely different in the same breath. And yeah, at the drop of a hat, that can happen. So being able to be organised, and I love the look of that picture there, just that desk. It's just the office manager's dream is to have everything set out neatly, almost OCD with the rubbers there, you can see, and the pencils. But yeah, just having everything at your fingertips. And being able to maintain a high level of organisation to get you back and stay on track is really crucial because of that level of distraction. So how can you be more organised? So a few things here. For me, one of the most crucial things is to have all tools at your fingertips. If you have things like spreadsheets, databases with key information in, it might be on Google Sheets or on your intranet site, wherever it is, but all these key bits that you just want to access really quickly when you need the information, when your COO rings you and says, how much do we pay each year on the lease and the insurance? And you can just quickly go in and here it is, it's all there. You don't have to go through documents, budget sheets and so on to dig it out. You just prepare everything and the tools around you to enable you to have it at the touch of a button or a few buttons. So things like on your office lease information, your insurance, health and safety, audits and service dates and maintenance dates, a contract store, so having all your contract dates, start and end dates, notice periods, how much you spend with them roughly each month, each year, whatever suits you, and access to all your supplier contacts, your kind of black book, if you will, of all these wonderful suppliers that you rely on, whether you're in a contract with them or not. Just putting all these things at your fingertips will really help you to stay organised. Write things down. This one's really obvious, but a lot of people don't do it. I'm a big advocate of lists still, of writing them down. I've got a list sitting here on a pad above me, and for me it just gets it out of my head and it gets it down on a piece of paper. I know it's safe. It might be somewhere on a computer for you guys if you use some of the apps out there, but yeah, I think it's really important, and ideally to do it before you leave the office each night. You've got lots of different things going on, like you're moving offices and you're doing some tendering exercises and you've got a new person you're training up or you're hiring and so on and so forth. Lots of fairly big things, and then lots and lots of the normal little things going on as well, the smaller tasks. Just put it all down before you leave the office that night. It helps you to kind of switch off slightly from the office and from your job for the day. But also means that you come into that list in the morning and you're kind of empowered because it's sitting there and you're like, right, I'm going to smash the day out and go for it. So yeah, doing that I think is a really useful tool. Make and stick to deadlines. I do this a lot, and I'm unfortunately sometimes unrealistic. So my advice is be realistic. And if you start to monitor the time that you take to complete certain tasks, you'll learn each time how to then be more realistic and set proper deadlines for future tasks. So if you're working on, say, a spreadsheet of, putting a new database together of perhaps your contacts and suppliers, you know roughly how long that's taken you. So keep an eye on that. And then when you add things of a similar nature to your list and you set deadlines, just keep that in mind. How long did it take me last time? Okay, I can fit that in here. And you're not putting that unrealistic pressure on yourself. You just don't need to add to. Don't procrastinate. So this is easy to do, and I think working at home, it's one of the things I struggle with. So I was all prepared for this webinar, this session, and at 1:30 I went downstairs to make myself toast, and then I noticed there was some stuff left over from the baby's lunch that needed to be cleaned up and the washing needed putting out, and I thought I had half an hour to have a bit of lunch and then maybe do a little bit more work before we got online, and before I know it I got back and it's like 10 to 2 and I've procrastinated with all my house chores. So try not to, and it can happen at work as well. People can pull you away and make you lose your focus, but try and keep focus where you can and deal with each task at a time. Declutter frequently, and I mean virtually and physically here. So declutter your emails. There's all sorts of sessions out there, and I can recommend some. A guy in Australia, Nick, has got some really good sessions about email management that he's released recently. So if anyone needs help with that, do let me know and I can share his details. Your filing system. Lauren Bradley from The Officials has done some talks recently on virtual filing systems, and I think she's got some tech hats there. But if you've got the standard office filing system like I have online, just take some time every so often, or ask your juniors if you've got direct reports, do it and go through it and just give it a clear out and just get it in that organised level that you want. For my filing system, I have kind of the top level folders that I want in capital letters, so like health and safety, and then office information, keep in case and things like that in capitals, and then archives within each of those folders for old stuff that I still want to keep, but I just don't need in that main folder to keep it really tidy. So making it work for you so that everything is just decluttered, and give everything a home that makes sense for you. Prioritize over and over and over again. I think, you know, we all know that in these office management jobs in particular, the goalposts constantly move and change. And I think it's really important to clearly see what your more crucial tasks are. When you write that list before you leave the office each night, it might be then good to do a prioritization the next morning to look at it, because things may have changed overnight, as they tend to do, and you come into things you didn't expect to come into, like leaky toilets again, and just look at it again and rewrite it. Or just, you know, what I used to do was highlight stuff that I was going to work on for that day from that list, and again, make it realistic, but really keep reprioritizing, not overthinking it, but just going with your gut and what needs to be done first. Okay, so being proactive, how can we do this and what does it mean? So picture the scene. You could either A, do proactive checks around your office, identify snags, risks and possible issues, and fix them before it gets brought to your attention by someone else, or worse, something happens and there's an incident. Or you can wait for the latter to occur. So an incident or an accident occurs and it becomes a reactive job instead. So it's flipped from proactive to reactive. It's the opposite side. You get bogged down by endless reports of defects around the office, all this lights out above me, handles are falling off the doors, and so on and so forth. And sooner or later, that list that you already had becomes much, much bigger, because all these reactive tasks are coming to you, more than you would really want. Or the opposite is that no one will ever tell you about it, and that's even worse. So which sits better with you guys? I'm going to assume it's A. That's certainly what sits better with me. So being proactive in your office environment is turning things on their head, taking ownership, getting and staying one step ahead. This is a true story. So when I first started Black and White Office Consultancy, I was working for a client. So I do kind of facilities and office management consulting, where I'll go in and I'll look at how everything's set up and processes and things, particularly perhaps when they're thinking of hiring an office or facilities manager, or when they're maybe changing hands, or they've got someone new to office management. I go in and I look at all their processes and I make recommendations and train up and help them hire and all sorts of stuff like that. So I was working with a client to do this, and they didn't have a facilities manager in place. So I started to look at all their processes and procedures, and on the day that I started to talk to them about doing proactive housekeeping, so checking their office for all sorts of defects and issues, they had a member of staff get stuck in their disabled toilet because the door handle fell off. So she went to open the door and the handle fell off on her, so she couldn't get out of the toilet. Luckily, she was in the disabled toilet, so they had that pull cord, red cord up there to set the alarm off. But yeah, it can happen. So doing things like that, getting your maintenance or handyman, is just a really good example of how you can be proactive and why it's so important. So leave your desk in the best possible state. It might be an obvious one, but for me, again, that picture on the organised screen, it just clears your head. It's some of that decluttering as well. But I really believe in a clear desk, clear mind, and having that to do this, getting it out of your head. Deal with the quick wins first. I saw an article about this not that long ago, actually. Someone else was sharing it, and it is so true. If you've got half a dozen small tasks to do that you know will probably take you somewhere between, I don't know, a couple of minutes, 5, 10, 15 minutes, something like that, and you don't need that full spectrum of attention on them, you can quickly smash them out, whether it be some email responses, attaching reports, sending stuff off, you know, these kind of quick things you can do, quickly going and seeing someone to tell them that their chair's here and, you know, someone's going to bring it up for them in a second, whatever it might be. Deal with those first, and then the bigger tasks that you know are going to take time, put them on your list and start to prioritize them and have in mind what you're going to do when. I really get a sense of satisfaction still, hence why I still write things down on a pad with a piece of pen and paper, is because I love crossing stuff out. And for me, ticking it off on a task list on Outlook just doesn't do it. I like to feel that tick and that cross it out. That's my real satisfaction when I've done some of these bigger tasks. So, which is why I've crossed the completion out, because for me that's a really good motivator. Provide effective and timely updates. Some of these you'll see kind of blend into some of the others, like this is a communication piece as well, but also being proactive. If you're keeping people up to date, the chances are that they're not coming to you saying, Hannah, what's happening? Where's my chair, etc. If you're going to them, you know, not every minute of the day, but in a sensible, you know, periodic time to say, this is the update, this is the update, this is the expectation, and manage those expectations effectively with fixes, requests, deadlines, projects, etc. It will show that you're really proactive and you're managing upwards and you're really owning everything that you're looking after for them. Seek out feedback. This can be challenging. It might open up that awful can of worms that we hate to open up, but at the same time it's so valuable. So I think the risk reward, it's worth it. It's worth doing it for the benefit it can give you. If you get feedback from people, one, you're demonstrating that you're proactive and you're actively seeking it, but also it will give you an opportunity to see what perhaps you're missing, because you can't be and see everything in your office environment. But also, even if they give feedback on you, it might be something that you can work on. You know, I take feedback quite badly when it's about me, and I'm not great at it, and it's something I've always had to work on improving. But when I get the kind of wonderful period of reflecting on it after I've got over the, oh, that hurt, why did you say that, whatever it was, you know, I really can reflect and think, okay, I will try consciously to do this better, whatever it might be. Learn from your mistakes. We all make them. So I've intentionally put a mistake in there, hopefully to make you feel better. Yeah, we all make them. If you've been on any of these presentations before, you'll have seen sometimes that I've got words in the wrong place and things like that. We all make them. Don't beat yourself up. Take note, learn from it, move on, but do so gracefully and professionally. And sometimes that's harder to do, because if you're so passionate and you're so invested in something and you've made a mistake, you can feel embarrassed, you can feel demotivated, you can feel a bit silly. You know, it's hard. But I think the really important thing is to pick yourself up, apologise if you need to apologise, rectify it if you need to rectify it, and do so smoothly and professionally. And don't overcommit yourself. We are yes people. It is an inherent part of our roles and our job, and it's so hard to do. But be aware of your own capacity, monitor it regularly. That list will help you to do that. And make sure that you can push back when it's appropriate. Okay. Self-motivation. This one's a bit of a tough one, but we're going to do it together. So what motivates you in your role? For me personally, it's always been that satisfaction, hence the to-do list and crossing it off, of a job well done. And people will not always say to me, job well done, Hannah, brilliant, you go, kind of thing, which is why sometimes I share the good news with my directors and my manager and say, I've done it, and I want that pat on the back. Like, I'm a woman that when I was a kid, I would come home from, I was going to say work then, from school, with my coursework to my parents and be like, look, I got an A, or whatever it might be. I didn't always get A's, trust me. But if I did, you know, it's like, look, I got an A. I remember I won a trophy once, one of the courseworks I did for my GCSEs, and I think I nearly cried. I was so proud of myself and wanted to just tell the world about it, because I take great pride in my work, which is why when people criticise it, I get quite upset. So I think there's a way of understanding what motivates you, what you're passionate about, and taking that and making sure that you're celebrating your own successes, and also telling people about it, so that hopefully you do get some of that recognition and motivation from them as well. But don't expect it, because people won't always give you that and won't always be able to satisfy that for you. It is a tough one, as sometimes your day will just take that course, you know, and we all have them where sort of 3 things seem to go wrong and you just put your head in your hands and you just want to give up. But try and find it again. Try and find that motivating factor, that job you enjoy. Drop everything else if you can, and pick up a task that you really enjoy and you really get a buzz out of, and then carry on and come back to those other tasks later. You need to be a thinker, a creator, and a doer in these jobs. And I think it's so important in these roles to have that self-motivating factor there. Without it, I do think you'll find yourself quite lost because of the amount of variety that's in the role and the tasks that we do. It's your own internal drive to achieve, produce, develop, and really to keep growing within your career. So it's in us all somewhere, we've just got to reach in and find it. So here's some other tips on that. Figure out what inspires you. What is it that gives you that satisfaction, that fire in your belly feeling? You can tell, hopefully, that I'm incredibly passionate about office management, and I don't think I'll ever do anything else in terms of my career. Maybe only one other thing, which would be to be a pilot and fly planes, but I doubt I will ever do that, particularly if COVID continues. So for me, office management is my passion. That's what inspires me. But there's some elements in the job that I'm like, oh, I really don't like that bit of that job. You know, there's only a few, and they're the ones that I kind of put to the bottom of the list. But try and surround yourself with those inspirational bits and pieces. Find it and hang on to it. Keep motivators around you. It could be personal effects, professional things, certifications, feedback quotes. So if you've got an email, you know, whatever it might be from your boss or whoever saying, congratulations, thanks so much for all your efforts here, whatever it might be, if that really gave you that wonderful kind of, oh, that feels so good to get that feedback, that fire in your belly feeling, save it, put it in an email folder somewhere where you can go to it, print it off if you want to and pop it on your desk, whatever suits you, but keep those kind of things around you. Follow motivators and surround yourself with them. So people that are inspirational to you on social media. If you're a book reader, I'm not, I'm trying to get back into it now, but read books that fit in with those inspiring factors and surround yourself with good company. And I think this is true for in our personal lives as well, but if you're surrounded by people that are constantly negative, constantly critical, it will eventually rub off on you. And sometimes that's difficult to avoid at work, but seek out those people that inspire you and that make you feel good about yourself and feel good about working that company, and try and connect yourself to them. I talk somewhere in here in a little while about having a mentor as well. So that's a really good one. Learn to know yourself. Note down when your motivation's at its best and why. So you're really trying to understand what motivates you and why. And also when it's at its worst too, what kind of pushed you to feel demotivated? What was the trail that led to that feeling? And hopefully that will help you to identify a pattern, and you'll understand yourself a little better as to the goods and the bads. And then it might enable you to avoid the bads, or at least recognise when you're perhaps going down that road, and then to get back on the motivated path. And don't overthink it. I'm an overthinker, can be at times. If a particular piece of work makes you feel demotivated, come back to it, as I said earlier, and start something that does. That's not always possible to do because of deadlines and things, but if it is, it's a really good way of getting that satisfaction you need, getting back on that motivational ladder, so you start to feel really good again and you've got that drive, and then you can probably pick that piece of work up that made you feel a bit demotivated there. Because if you're starting at the bottom of the ladder and that piece of work's going to just try and take you further down, you're kind of in the land of no return. Whereas if you're at the top of the ladder, you might come down a few rungs, but not that far, and hopefully you'll be able to sustain it. Support other people. For me, and I think for a lot of people, particularly you guys in office management as well, I suspect there is no greater satisfaction than helping others. And if you didn't get satisfaction from doing it, I suspect you probably wouldn't be in the roles that you're in. So yeah, where you can, support other people. If you manage teams or even just individuals, train them up, mentor them, talk them about what you're doing and why, and bring them into that world, because they will love it and they will feel so empowered by you doing that. And it will give you that satisfaction. Okay, communication. So I want you to consider what sort of communicator you are at the moment. Would you say you're an effective communicator? Would you say that you've got some room to improve? And are you more of a dictator, or are you more of a consultancy kind of led communicator? And what sort of listener are you as well? There's 4 main types of listening. There's appreciative listening, which is when you listen for enjoyment, so if you think about podcasts or music that you listen to that bring a smile to your face, or comedians, people you hold in high regard, they're the kind of people that you have appreciative listening for. And there might be some people like that in your workplace. So again, try and attach yourself to those and learn from them. Empathic listening is empathic listening, is when you listen empathetically or are doing so to show mutual concern. So during this kind of listening, you're trying to identify with the person who's speaking by understanding the situation and perhaps trying to step into their shoes. So as they're talking about a situation, you quite literally try to imagine yourself in their shoes, and that will lead you to be a more empathic listener and be more sympathetic to their situation. Comprehensive listening, so if you're watching the news, for example, or you're listening to a lecture, or maybe it's something that's happening right now in this session, you're listening to understand and listening to comprehend the message that's being given to you. You might be making notes as well. This is a process which is active listening. So this is the one we tend to do the most at work, particularly when you're with your manager and they're talking through a project and things, you're comprehensively listening to them, trying to get an understanding. And then there's critical listening, and this is one where you may have already done a lot of the research. So if you go to a car showroom, for example, and you've already looked up online, you know, the make of the car and its miles per gallon and all these kind of things. So you know a lot of the facts already, but you go and talk to the salesperson about it. They will then probably reel off all the benefits and things about the car, but in the back of your mind, you're potentially being somewhat critical because you already know or believe you know what they're saying and you know about it. So you're already analysing and evaluating what you've heard, and yeah, you might therefore not listen all parts of the message, or you might listen to it and continue to analyse and evaluate. So they're the 4 types of listening. I did years and years ago a course on listening. It was part of an offering in one of my companies as to all the managers, all the senior managers, and it was really useful because it helped you identify what sort of listener you naturally were, but also then how to adapt that style, particularly as a manager, so that you could become those various types of listeners depending on the situation you're in. So if anyone's ever done, if anyone's not ever done anything but you want to learn more about it, it's a really interesting one to look into. It's really key to understand your options here. So like I say, knowing how you can be a better listener and what kind of tools are available to you, and how you can communicate as well, and what sort of tools are available there as well in order to manage effectively. You can mix up your style and tools, and it doesn't mean if you've started out as a communicator or a listener in a certain way that you have to stick to that the whole way through. You can flip it. You could become a comprehensive listener, then you could flip and be an empathic one in the same conversation. Mix up your style, yeah, and consider what input and responses you may want ahead of time, so that you're thinking, okay, well, if I approach it like this, in this way, then perhaps this is the response I'll get, which is the response I'd ideally like, or the outcome I'd like. And then when it comes to communicating, consider remote methods versus in-person versus visual to get your messages out. So thinking about, you know, remote methods being chat, instant chat, or using your phone or email and those kind of things, versus going and seeing people or doing a presentation, versus visual things, so like posters around the office and that kind of stuff. So all the options that are available to you, all these methods of communicating. So how can you communicate more effectively? Learn your style and responses. I think it's really important, like that other slide said, to get to know yourself first, and then be an active listener, making note of yours and other people's body language to observe what's going on there and how they're responding to you, and also observing other communicators, people again that you admire or respect, and seeing how they do it and learning from them. Silence is golden. This one's not easy for me. I'm a talker, but sometimes silence is okay. It allows others to continue their thought process by not interrupting them. So as awkward as it may seem for those sort of split or few seconds that there is silence, particularly if it's something that, you know, someone needs to process, someone needs to digest and think about. If you've just maybe you're approaching your boss and you're asking for a pay rise, or you're asking for, you know, an increase on the budget to do this successfully. They might just need to process it. So just allow that silence to be there, and don't necessarily try and fill the gap. Ask questions. It's a really easy way to show that you're invested in a conversation, particularly if you manage people, or you know, it's a peer that you're trying to extract information on, to show that you're invested in it. You can ask clarifying questions. For example, ask for repetition, so you can get them to repeat it again, or can you say that again, or can you just clarify this, is that what you meant? Can you give me some examples? These kind of things are active, and they're clarifying questions, so it's a really good way of actively listening to them. Be prepared. So a top tip before any meeting or conversation, or even an email, if it's an email of importance, I don't mean every email you write because you would be there forever, but make notes and have an objective in mind and know what you're talking about. If you don't know the subject that you're talking about, particularly if you're out there presenting or you're having a conversation trying to, again, get approval for something, and you're not completely clear on the topic, do your research and arm yourself with that information before you go out there, because otherwise you might find yourself in a bit of a pickle. Relax. Being yourself is so important. It's really difficult sometimes to accept that, but even in stressful situations or in an interview situation, for example, it is still effective by being yourself, remaining professional, and being self-aware. Yeah, that's a really important method of communicating, because otherwise you're just not true to yourself and you'll probably slip up at some point. So do be yourself and relax. And written communication is just as key. Write it, come back to it, check it again, and ask for help or a second pair of eyes if you need to. I think with things, again, like every email, this isn't necessary, but if you're writing a policy that you're then sending out and you're going to get other people to read it, or you're writing, you know, we do it a lot in our roles where you're writing these big all staff emails about probably COVID at the moment and returning to work, write it, come back to it the next day or later on that day if you can, check it over again, send it to someone else if you're able to check for you, because you want to ensure that your communication methods are accurate, you know, that it's clear if you're asking them to do certain things or action things, but also that it's readable, that it makes sense, and so on and so forth. So it's just as important. What other skills are important? And I'm going to open up here and leave the screen blank for a couple of minutes. Can you guys jot down on the chat or shout out other skills that you think are important in these roles, please? What do you think is an important skill in addition to or enhancing what we've already talked about? Is there anything else you can think about or think of that are key skills in our roles in office management? Chat them in. Okay, nothing's coming in, so I'll do the work. Okay, so for me, there's a lot, and this might seem overwhelming, but I think these are all adaptable and they tie in together, quite a lot of them do. So being approachable and personable, timekeeping, learning how to say no, being observant, informed of all related documents, company and government. Yeah, so like research, yeah, staying up to date, absolutely, yeah, that's a good one. Being flexible and adaptable, learning on the job, being a quick learner, being a strong leader, manager, being creative, multitasking. I'm doing a session next Friday, I think it is, on multitasking, if anyone wants to join that. Being a good researcher, being a good decision maker, being detail oriented, being confident, being a problem solver, using initiative, IT soft skills, budgeting, and the rest. I think there's a lot because of the amount of hats we wear. If you were doing one job that was more or less repetitive day in, day out, that would probably be a much narrower list. But you have to be kind of everything to everyone in that office and in that company. So there's a lot, but I'm pretty sure you probably all know these already. Being approachable. So I'm just going to cover a couple of the ones that I think are important to talk about in our roles from that long list. I'm not going to go into detail on all of them. So being approachable, you can't be the go-to person in your office if people are afraid to come and talk to you. I know some office managers in the past, where I've worked in companies where there's multiple office managers, or I've taken over from office managers in companies where I've joined. And yeah, people would say that they were never really able to approach them about things because they were just a bit scary. And I think it's good to present a little bit of scary person when you're an office manager, because you have to be able to say no, you have to be able to set a tone, and so on and so forth. But I think there's a fine line between that and also being approachable and being personable and allowing people to come to you for help. If you feel like people aren't coming to you to let you know about issues or passing on feedback, you can be proactive again and reach out to them. And here's some ways you could do it. If there's assistants, you might be the assistant for your business as well, but if there are other assistants, hold regular meetings with them. They're often the eyes and ears to your company. So have a few sort of notes or an agenda out there to discuss things, give them updates on what you're up to, get them involved in projects, get their opinion, get them on side, and get their feedback. Ask for feedback straight from the top. If you've got a link and a line into the CEO or the COO, go and get feedback from them. You know, what works, what doesn't, what can I do to improve things? Is there anything else I can do to influence how the office runs or how the business, so on and so forth. Can you have a mentor? So I mentioned this earlier. I think it's really important, and people forget the value of having a mentor. I've been fortunate that a lot of my managers have naturally acted as my mentor, and that relationship's kind of just formed quite organically in that way. But yeah, I think if you don't have it, or even if you want someone in addition to your manager, go and have a mentor. Ask someone in the company, or it doesn't even need to be in the company, to help you, that is a good influence. You can create staff surveys to get feedback using one of those free apps, and there's links on there. And being proactive and approachable, you're demonstrating that you're there to support that working environment. We use 515 program. What's that? I've not heard of that before. How to say no. This is a good one for people that can't at the moment. Don't be that yes person who ends up with too much on their plate. I like pressure. I thrive on pressure to do my job, but there is a limit to it, and I think there's a limit for everybody with that. So because there's a degree in these roles where you are the go-to person, you need to still be helpful, but that doesn't mean that you take on every single task and every single project on the chin. So here's some alternatives to saying, yes, I can do that, and consider what approach might be best for you. So you could provide resources to people to find solutions to themselves. You could direct them to the right contact if it's not you. I don't believe in saying that's not my job, you need to go to them. I think there's something you can do a little bit further than that to bridge it. And I've never really been one to say that's not my job. I disagree with that. I think everybody has a role to play, and you're a team there. So directing them to the right contact, by doing introduction emails, or particularly if they're a new joiner, you walk them physically over to that person to help them. And it's almost like if you think about when you're on the phone to somewhere like Sky, or one of these companies that takes forever to get through, and you're pushing all the buttons, you're entering your account number in, and then they get on the phone and they say, hi there, what's your account number? And you think, I've literally just put it in the phone and it's verified that that's me, and now I've got to give it to you again. And then they say, what's your date of birth? And you go through it all again. You have a conversation with them, this is the problem, okay, we'll just put you through to this department. You get put through, you explain it again. It's infuriating. So think about that in the same way. You're providing a service to those people in the office. So if a new joiner approaches you and says, hey, how do I go about getting this? And it might be with compliance, for example, to get, I don't know, an FCA audit signed off, or training or something like that. Instead of saying, it's not me, you need to speak to compliance, why not take them to compliance if you can? Or, say, oh, compliance are here, you need to speak to this person. Just explain what you've told me. There's such a better way of doing it than just saying, door closed, it's not my job, not my problem. Show them how to do it, make it clear that they can and they should do it themselves next time. So I'm talking about things like the printers. This was such a bugbear for me in my offices. I never had a process where, in some companies the IT guys would do it, but I never really had a process where, as the facilities team, all of my staff would just be the ones that constantly top paper up, deal with misfeeds and replace toners. We had like training of printers, so all the staff were able to change toners and deal with misfeeds themselves, and we provided that training. And sometimes new people, or even old, people that have been there for some time, would come over and say, oh, there's a misfeed, and I would go and show them again. This is how you do it. Da, da, da. So yeah, hopefully next time you can fix that yourself, whatever it might be. I just think things like that, particularly if they're a bugbear for you, deal with them again professionally, calmly, and in a manner that you would want to be shown, but try and educate them to deal with it themselves. You will still get crazy silly requests because that's the nature of our jobs, but you can still say no. There's a way of doing it instead of just no, but yeah, I think it's important to push back, stand your ground, be the independent and strong person that you are, and it comes in handy as well where your suppliers and contractors are concerned. It's quite a male-dominated industry when you start to look at the suppliers, print salespeople, cleaning companies and so on. A lot of them, and certainly in my career, and it's becoming more female, but over my career, a lot of them have been male. And some of them can be quite strong and strong-handed in the sense that they're like, this is it, and da, 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 da. And you can push back and say, do you know what, no, that's not acceptable for us. This is what it says in the contract. These are the SLAs. This is what we expect. And, there's a way of doing it, but push back and stand your ground. Okay, so being observant. If you can see it, you can act on it. So daily housekeeping, the example I gave about the door handle falling off, is one of the easiest ways to kick that off. Looking around your office every day, once a week, whatever it might be in relation to the size of your office and what makes sense, is a really good way. And it also shows you're being proactive. People would see you walking around taking notes of lights out, issues with air conditioning, defects, things are working, fire extinguishers in the right place, and so on and so forth. And you can talk to people whilst you're walking around the office as well. Hey Dave, how's it going today? Did that issue get fixed for you yesterday? Cool, brilliant, okay, fab. Or no, okay, let me follow that up right now. That kind of thing. It will remind you, will allow people to access you, and you will be able to be proactive and continue to be that go-to person. That's awesome. Know your subject matter. What are you looking for? If you can understand it, you'll see more of it. So if you are responsible for health and safety and you're doing this daily check, do you know what all the elements in your ceiling are and what all the equipment and things are around you? And it's not, again, to be an expert in all those areas, but just to scratch the surface a bit and understand the equipment and the life safety systems a little bit better. Slow down and look outwards. This is the obvious one. Cut out distractions. We've got a lot of them around us where you can cut them out or just put them on to one side. And be a little bit inquisitive. Think Sherlock Holmes style. I think it's a really good tip there for being observant. For me, it's always been about the level of interest in the role. I'm passionate about them, and therefore I'm always challenging and observing what's around me. I'm a loser, right, when it comes to office management. So where was I the other day? And I was having a massage. So my salon spa place opened up this week, and I didn't think I'd be able to get an appointment for ages, and I got a cancellation for one night this week. And they're super. They're really fantastic. But they've put all these wonderful signs up, all branded, and they've got sanitizing stations. They've got a box you put your clothes in, and all this kind of stuff. Really, really slick in terms of the COVID stuff. So we were talking about it, and I said that I do risk assessments for COVID and so on. And anyway, I said to her, it's crazy because I always observe and see things like that, and I can't switch it off. So I go into restaurants and I look at the fire alarm systems and the smoke heads and where the fire exits are and the fire exit signs and all this kind of stuff. So it can make you a little bit of a loser like me and a bit nuts, but I think it's what it takes in some regard to be good at your job and to be able to see these things. When you're doing those daily housekeeping checks, if you're the only person in your office in that role, try and mix it up a bit. So if you go the same route every day around your office, you might start to miss things. So take different routes each day if you can, because you'll likely see more that way. If you have the luxury of having staff work with you or for you, like for example, if you're the office manager and you've got a receptionist, maybe get them to do it a couple of times a week and you sit on reception, because you'll still see what's going on, and it's good to kind of check in with reception anyway and be part of that role still to a degree. But they'll also learn a bit, and it just means that you've got then that double check of two different people, and you don't become I can't think of the word now, but you won't miss things hopefully because you're checking it all in you. So how can you harness these skills? At the moment, it's worth considering what of those you already have in your bank. You might be making notes now to think about, what you already are good at. And can you develop any of them further? Or do you think they're pretty tip top, they're where they need to be? If so, are there any online courses? If you want to enhance them more, you can take, can you research online, maybe the listening one's one that you want to start looking at, and identify your strengths and also your development areas. I don't believe in calling them weaknesses. I don't think anyone's got any weaknesses. I think they're just areas for development and improvement, which is always a good thing. Ask for feedback. So go to your line manager, your HR, your team, your direct report, your colleagues, and get feedback. Because from that, you'll probably start to understand yourself a little bit better and where your strengths are and where your development areas are. So, you could say, look, these are kind of the 4 skills that I think it takes to do my job. Which of them do you think I've got nailed, and which of them do you think I need to improve on? Or what do you think are the key skills it takes to do this job, and so on, and lead the conversation in that way. Take time to reflect when you can. Oh, the luxury of time, and try not to overthink it. So if you can, at the end of the day, maybe on the train home and things, just think about how things have gone that day and what skills you've utilized and what skills you're improving on and in, and where perhaps you still need to go. I think it's really important to take time to reflect. And consider the tools already in your arsenal and what other tools you can develop and grow and improve to put in your arsenal, and have them at your fingertips, and pick them accordingly. And I don't just mean the tools like the spreadsheets and things. I mean all these different skills and all these different styles and tones and things of communicating and of dealing with situations and so on. Think before you speak or type. I think it's a really obvious one, but again, knowing what you've got available to you, consider what the best approach to various different situations are. Visualize the possible outcomes ahead of time, and what you would like the outcome to be. If you've got to have a difficult conversation with someone you manage or with your manager, visualize it and think about the best approach to take. Is it better that I go to them and say, listen, there's a bit of a problem, this is it, what do you think we should do? Or is it better to go in and say, there's a bit of a problem, however, I've thought about the possible scenarios and approaches we can take. The first is this, second is that, the third is that. What do you think works better? There's different ways of doing it. I think the latter is better if you can do it, because you're showing that you've already taken measures to resolve the situation, and then you're asking them to help and give some input, rather than there's a problem, what do I do? It might suit that scenario to do that at a different time, because you might be unexperienced in that area and just not have a clue how to handle it, which is fine. And set realistic goals, write them down and tick them off when you've achieved them. That's a personal one really, but if you're someone that likes that tick, even if it is on the computer instead of on a bit of paper, then do it, because it just gives you that satisfaction, thinking back to the self-motivating slide. And that is it. Has anyone got any questions? Does anyone want to say hi and add anything to it? Are there any skills that you think we've missed there that are really important? Anything else to add? Any experiences to share? Or are you going to stay silent on me? You're welcome. Pleasure. If anybody, I'm going to throw it out there. I know some of you do ring me sometimes for advice and support, and that's absolutely fine. But if anybody does ever want me as their mentor, then do let me know. I'm happy to take calls and try and support where I can. I might not be able to do it forever, but certainly at the moment I've got some time, and I'm happy to help out if anyone wants any extra support or just wants to call and ask questions and how to handle different things. So I can be a mentor if you need. All right, but hopefully you might be able to be each other's mentors as well in the future. So, all right, well, I will let you go. Is it Friday today? Isn't it? I think. Yeah, it's Friday, right? Okay, well, enjoy. It's sunny. Have a lovely weekend, and I will see you all very soon. And remember, we've got the webinar. I think it's next Friday at 2 on managing multitasking and your mind. So tune into that one, and I'll see you all soon. Take care. Pleasure.